Mhm.
But first you're talking about Epstein and the DC world and everything, right?
Yes.
And you have a class which says Epstein World,
Yes.
where you explain how the power of the world works.
Yes.
What is it about? What are you trying to say in that?
So this Epstein case is really puzzling, and there are certain mysteries involved. The first mystery is how this guy rise from nowhere to the very top of the world.
Yeah.
Right? So we know he started at the Dalton School, and Donald Barr, who is William Barr's father. So this is a CIA family. Donald Barr was headmaster of Dalton and hired Jeffrey Epstein to be a math teacher. And then Jeff Epstein was there for a few years, and then he went to Bear Stearns to work in finance, to learn the financial world. And after Bear Stearns, he went to work for a man named Douglas Leese, Leese, who was a British arms trafficker involved with Iran-Contra. Okay? And then during this time, David Rockefeller, the chairman of Chase Manhattan Bank, invited Jeffrey Epstein to join the Trilateral Commission at age 30. And Jeffrey Epstein tells Steve Bannon in a media interview, it's because I'm a math wizard. Like, I'm good at math, and that's why they wanted me on the board. Clearly nonsense, okay? But it's like, why would David Rockefeller invite this 30-year-old to join the Trilateral Commission?
Exactly. He could have anyone from the world, but why him?
Exactly. The bigger mystery is, in the year 1991, an Ohio billionaire, owner of Victoria's Secret, named Les Wexner, he signed over the power of attorney to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, well, most people would say no one, because the power of attorney gives the person the power of life and death over you, and that's very scary, right? So we don't know the actual relationship between Wexner and Epstein, but it couldn't have been that close, right? They didn't really know that each other well. So why would Wexner sign over the power of attorney, again, which is the power of life and death over you, to Epstein? It's a huge mystery for us. And then if you read the Epstein Files, there are all these code words in there that no one can decipher. So, for example, he and his friends, who are billionaires, by the way, they love pizza and grape soda. I don't know anyone who loves pizza and grape soda, but like that's like their favorite food: pizza and grape soda.
Okay.
They also like to send their kids to the dentist once a month. Like, why would you do that? Why would you send your child to the dentist every month, right? And so the Epstein Files are very confusing, and there seems to be a lot of code words in there. But a bigger mystery is this, where people like Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, and Elon Musk, they were trying to become Epstein's friend, right? So it was not that Epstein was trying to become their friend. It was they were trying to become his friend. And so Reid Hoffman and Bill Gates, both billionaires, were asked, why do you associate with this guy? And both said, well, because we wanted his money for our charities. So these are billionaires begging Epstein for money. Okay? And then Epstein would also say to people like Peter Thiel, I represent the Rothschilds. He would also write an email to the Rothschilds and says that, there are three families that were very powerful in European banking. They were the Rothschilds, the Epsteins, and the Gutmans. So he's saying that he comes from a pedigree that's similar to the Rothschilds. So the big question for us is, who is this guy?
Exactly.
Okay?
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy? Okay? So I'm going to now explain my theory to you.
Okay.
And it's a weird theory. So feel free to interrupt or challenge me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. But let me get the whiteboard
Okay.
and show you how I think the world works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a lot of conspiracy theorists believe that the world is controlled by secret societies. And they are able to pass their ideas from one generation to the next. And they've been conspiring for hundreds of years in order to achieve their plans. I don't think it's that simple. Okay. So I have an alternative theory. And so I'm going to present it to you. Okay. All right. So the first I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you the general theory.
Okay.
And then I'll give you the concrete example, the concrete case study in order to validate this theory.
All right.
Okay. So for all of human history, every society has been obsessed with the occult. Okay. The occult, especially India, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is a cult? A cult is trying to figure out the secrets of the universe, right? The Vedas. And in the occult, you'll have astrology, you have alchemy, you'll have sacred geometry, you'll have reincarnation, demonic possession. So these are all things that the occult is obsessed with. Okay? There are certain occultists who are obsessed with the idea of eschatology. Eschatology is the understanding of how the world may end.
Okay.
And eschatology is important because it answers the three fundamental questions for humans, which is, where did we come from? Why are we here? And where are we going? And so eschatology, if you know what God's plan is, right? If you know what God's plan is, then you know that you are here to achieve God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who believe in eschatology, they tend to be more energetic. They tend to be more fanatical and more determined than other people because they believe they are part of God's plan. And they see the finish line. So they're working towards it, okay?
Okay.
All right, so that's the occult,
Mm.
right? Now, the occult is only concerned about the spiritual, mystical realm, right? So these Vedic priests only care about how God's mind works. They don't care about the material world. But you have individuals that only care about the material world. Mm. And these are people who work in finance or business, okay? And if you are very successful in finance and business, you're a billionaire, right? What are you concerned about? You're concerned about immortality. You're concerned about living forever. You're concerned about how to maintain your wealth, how to take your wealth into the spiritual realm. So now you have to work with these occultists, right? So they say billionaires don't believe in astrology, but billionaires do, right? I'm sure every billionaire has an astrologer.
Yeah, or a numerologist.
Exactly, yeah. Right? Okay. So now we have this possible alliance between financiers who are looking for the secrets of the universe in order to conquer the material world, in order to conquer life and death. You have these occultists who are interested in achieving God's plan. And again, I'm not saying every occultist, every financier is like this, but it's just a subset of these people. Yeah. And these people come together and form secret societies. Right? And these secret societies is a platform for these occultists to further their study and to promote their eschatology. And it's a platform for these financiers, these billionaires, to access the secrets of the universe. Okay, now the question then is, how do they achieve their plan? And the answer is you have to co-op politics, right? So you go into politics and you identify possible potential individuals that could help you promote your plan. And I would argue people like Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, even J.D. Vance, were individuals that were identified early on as potential Messiah figures that could achieve their vision politically, right? So that is how I think, generally speaking, the world works. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It makes sense.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a specific example.
Okay.
All right. And then this specific example will explain to us who Jeffrey Epstein was and where he came from.
Exactly. Like that's what I meant, because this is pretty general.
Yes. Okay. All right. So now we see the lines between the occultists, the financiers, and the politicians, right? Now I'm going to apply this and figure out where Jeff Epstein came from and what he's trying to do. Right.
Okay.
All right.
But before you go there, do you think this is absolutely true, or this is just some conspiracy theory which people like you and me and like 500 other people just have our own version because we don't understand how the world works fully?
I think this is true, because it helps us explain too much.
Okay.
Right.
There's no chance that this can be purely bullshit made out of story.
Okay. So again, we have the general theory, and then I'm going to provide you the specific example.
Okay.
And the specific example will tell us how true this is.
Okay.
Right? Because,
let's go to the specific.
like what I'm trying to do is, I don't know these people. I'm not involved in this world, but I'm trying to connect the dots.
Okay.
I'm trying to answer the mysteries created by the Epstein Files. Right?
Okay.
Now we will look at a very specific example. Okay. So there's a man named Rebbe Sneerson.
Okay.
Okay. And he's dead now, but for a long time, maybe over 50 years, he was the main rabbi, the main leader of an organization called Chabad Lubavitch. And this was an organization that is Hasidic Jews. Okay, so Hasidic Jews are these Jews who practice a mystical form of Judaism. So very similar to Sufis in the Islamic world. And so they're trying to figure out what the secret of the universe is. And they're trying to figure out what God's plan is. And for them, the main source of wisdom would be the Cabala. So the Cabala, what it's doing is it's taking all these great mystical traditions, and they include Vedic philosophy. They include Hermeticism, which comes from Egypt. It includes Gnosticism. It includes Sufism. But all these great mystical traditions, and they're trying to apply these traditions in order to understand the stories of the Bible.
Okay.
Okay. So the example is, why did Adam and Eve have to eat that fruit? God gave them just exactly one order, right? Don't eat that fruit, and you live in paradise forever. And they had to disobey God. And so how the Kabbalists understand this is they try to construct a cosmology to explain this. And the idea is this. The idea is that in the beginning, God is everything. But when you're everything, you become very lonely. and you become incomplete. So in order to complete itself, God decided to create the universe and create a cosmic being named Adam Kadmon. And God, as pure love, pure generosity, pure wisdom, it seeks to impart itself in another being, right? So God is the will to bestow, the will to give. That's what love is, right?
Yeah.
Giving. So it created a being, Adam Kadmon, in order to receive. And Adam Kadmon becomes the will to receive. And so God is trying to unify with Adam Kadmon in order for God to complete itself and know itself more. The problem, though, is that Adam Kadmon, as the will to receive, by definition, it has an ego. And the ego looks at the world from a selfish lens.
Yeah.
So Adam Kadmon does not appreciate God's generosity. That's what happened between God and Adam Kadmon, where God was trying to give him love, and Adam Kadmon didn't appreciate God's generosity, so Adam Kadmon ran away. That's why Adam and Eve disobeyed God, because they did not appreciate, understood God's intentions, because they were so egotistical, right? And so this is what's called the tree of life. Okay? Adam Kadmon is the tree of life.
Okay.
And the tree of life is a representation of Adam Kadmon, and God's trying to fill Adam Kadmon with the divine spirit. And it's working pretty well, but then eventually Adam Kadmon rejects God, and this is what's called the breaking of the world. Okay, so the world breaks. And so the divine spark now is scattered throughout the world. And so the purpose of the Jews, the purpose of everyone in this world is to repair the world. And how do you repair the world? You bring all the sparks together, and then you abandon your ego and you welcome God in your heart. And when God comes into you and you welcome him with open arms, that is when the world is repaired, and that is when the world ends. Okay, so this is the major teaching of the Cabala. And obviously, there are different interpretations of the Cabala. And Reformed Jews interpret this just to mean love thy neighbor, right? Love thy neighbor. It's that simple. Social justice. We have to commit ourselves to doing social good. When we do that, we repair the world, and God can come and be with us. Okay, and that will end the world. Other Jews believe that this requires them to spend all their lives reading and understanding the Torah to understand the mind of God. Okay? But then there are these extreme religious Jews, and Rabbi Sneerson is part of them, that interprets the Kabbalah literally. And they think in order to achieve the Kabbalah, you have to actually, in this world, follow God's plan and allow God to come to this world. And this plan, there are three major elements to this plan that is literal. The first is to bring the entire Jewish diaspora back to Jerusalem and have them all convert to Judaism. There are too many Jews that are secular. There are too many Jews who are following heresies. They all have to return to Jerusalem, every single Jew, because you have to repair the world, and they have to follow the Torah to the letter. Okay, that's number one. Number two is Israel has to achieve the Greater Israel Project, because that is what God promised Abraham in the Bible. And number 3 is the third temple has to be built, because that is the house of God. When the Jews are ready to receive God and God comes to our world, he needs a place to live. The third temple is God's house. Once these 3 conditions are met, the world will end. The world will be repaired. And so what he's saying is the Cabala is not just a religious idea. It is a political program that must be implemented. Okay? That's what Rebbe Snerson believes.
But he's no more.
Okay. He's dead, but they believe in reincarnation. All right. So now let me explain to you who he is and where he came from. Okay. So there's some funny things about Rebbe Snerson. No one's ever heard of him.
Okay. Before we actually go there, can you just in short brief, can you tell me what's the Greater Israel plan?
Oh, right. Okay. So these religious Jews, they're trying to have God return. These Jews who are religious, these extremists, they believe that the Bible is God's words. They literally come from the mind of God. And so everything in the Bible must be interpreted literally. But not only that, but it must be implemented to the letter, literally. And so in Genesis, God promised Abraham a land for his descendants. And this land stretches from the Nile in Egypt to the Euphrates in Mesopotamia. It also includes parts of Anatolia. Okay? So if you look at a map of Greater Israel, it's entire Middle East. And there are many elements in Israel who believe it is their destiny to achieve the Greater Israel Project. And that's why Israel is so aggressive. That's why they are attacking Lebanon right now. That's why they're threatening Turkey. That's why they're threatening Egypt. That's why the Zionists want Trump to destroy Iran, because it's all part of this Greater Israel Project. And again, for these religious Jews, they believe it is their duty to God to achieve God's promise to Abraham.
Got it.
And that's the Greater Israel Project. Okay. So now let's talk about Rebbe Snerson. Okay. So Rebbe Snerson is really interesting because there's not much we know about him, but there's certain things in politics that we've seen in politics that make us question who he is. So the first thing I'll say is this. Javier Milei, who is the president of Argentina, when he became president, the first foreign visit he made was to the grave of Rebbe Snerson in Brooklyn. Who does that? Javier Milei is not Jewish. He's not part of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And only about 1% of Argentinians are actually Jewish. So the Jews are not a huge presence in Argentina. They're a huge presence in Brooklyn, but not in Argentina. So first question is, why would a head of state, Javier Milei, on his first foreign visit, go pay his respects to the grave of Rebbe Snerson? Okay, that's number one. Okay. Number two is, there's a video on YouTube where, and this is like maybe the early 90s, and this is before Benjamin Netanyahu becomes prime minister of Israel. He goes and pays his respect to Rebbe Snerson, and he's basically asking for the Rebbe's patronage. He's saying to the Rebbe, I wish you to bless me, both professionally and personally. And Rebbe Schneerson says to him, when is the Messiah coming? And Netanyahu is like, soon. And Schneerson is like, we need to hurry it up.
This is a video.
You can do that right now. You can go on YouTube and look for this. Schneerson Netanyahu. You can watch the video now.
And where was this? In America?
It was in Brooklyn, yes. He never leaves Brooklyn. Everyone has to go visit him in Brooklyn. So if you want, you
So when he was alive, this is what happened.
that's right. This is like the early 90s. So that's number 2. Like, why would Benjamin Netanyahu need his blessing? And why Schneerson is like, you have to bring back the Messiah. You have to accelerate the coming of a Messiah. Okay? That's number 2. Number 3 is Jared Kushner. His family is very close to Rebbe Schneerson. And we know Jared Kushner married Ivanka Trump. This is after Schneerson is dead. But this really strange coincidence where Chabad Lubavitch, it is this messianic religious movement that is global in scope. And they got one of their members, Jared Kushner, to marry the daughter of the future president of the United States. What a strange coincidence that is. Right? So these 3 things make us wonder, right? Number 1, what would happen in Malay? President of Argentina, first state visit, he pays his respects to the grave of Schneerson. Number 2 is Schneerson basically orders Netanyahu, hurry up the coming of the Messiah. And number 3 is Jared Kushner, who is a member of Chabad Lubavitch, marries the daughter of the future president of the United States, Donald Trump. Okay? So, again, these are mysteries, and we're trying to connect the dots, okay? So now, I want to go into some background of Rebbe Schneerson. So, Rebbe Schneerson, he was actually born not in the United States. He was born in Marne, Ukraine. And Chabad Lubavitch was actually founded in the 1850s or the late 19th century in the Belarus area in Eastern Europe. And they spread over time. And during Soviet Russia and during the Nazi regime, Chabad Lubavitch was under tremendous threat. A lot of Soviets thought that Chabad Lubavitch was a dangerous political movement because they were messianic. They believed that the Messiah would come to bring them back to Jerusalem. So there's a really interesting story associated with Chabad Lubavitch. Okay, so this is about the year 1939. So let me tell you the story. 1939, and the Nazis are about to take over Poland. They've invaded Poland, and in Warsaw is where Rebbe Schneerson's predecessor, the former head of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, was located. And he was an elderly Jew. And so what happened was an international coalition came into being to rescue the Rebbe and bring him to America. The problem is, first of all, you have the Nazis all around Warsaw. Second of all, you need a lot of paperwork to get him to America. And third of all, for the Rebbe to go to America, he would have to cross through a lot of enemy territory, okay? So the person who took it upon himself to get the Rebbe, not Rebbe Schneerson, but the predecessor, to America, his name is Louis Brandeis.
Okay.
Okay. Why is he important? Louis Brandeis is the first Jewish member of the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a really powerful individual. Probably the most powerful Jew in America at this time. Okay? And there's a university named after him, by the way, Brandeis University, and it's a Jewish university. Okay, so this is probably the most influential Jew, one of the most influential Jews in American history. But he takes it upon himself, Louis Brandeis.
At the time when he was the member of Supreme Court.
Yes.
Okay.
He took upon himself to rescue the Rebbe and bring him to America. Okay. The problem, so he started to use all his international contacts. And he had friends in German intelligence, German Nazi intelligence, military intelligence. And they found these half-Jews who were war heroes. And therefore, Hitler gave them honorary Aryan membership. These are half-Jews. And these half-Jews came together as a military unit to go into Warsaw, dress as Nazi officers, and locate the Rebbe and take him to America on Nazi trains. Right? Now, when these Nazis went into Warsaw, you can imagine the Rebbe was not like, oh, they're here to help me, okay? So he's hiding himself for a long time. So it took a long time actually to send a message and says, like, these Nazi soldiers, they're actually on our side. They're not here to send you to a concentration camp. And then the Nazi soldiers found him and then transported him across enemy territory. And then put him on a steamship in France and sailed all the way to America. And then Rabbi Schneerson followed him, and the Chabad Lubavitch movement then set up shop in Brooklyn. And what they did that was very that had tremendous foresight is they pulled their money together. They weren't very rich people, but they pulled all the money together and tried to buy as much Brooklyn real estate as possible. Now they're an extremely wealthy organization because they did that. Because they pulled their resources together and bought as much Brooklyn real estate as possible. And now they are one of the wealthiest religious organizations in the world. Meanwhile, back in the Soviet Union, they became friends with the Soviet authorities, and they grew as well in Russia. And now they are very close to Vladimir Putin. Who are these people? Like, it's really strange, right?
It's
so strange.
Weird, yeah. Because isn't like all the people they're friends with, they're essentially against the whole idea of what these guys do.
It makes you wonder how the world really works. Okay? Everything I've told you is factually correct. You can go, you watch this on YouTube. You can do research. Everything I've told you is documented. It's all true. So now, what I'm going to do, okay, let's keep all this in mind. Okay, Jeffrey Epstein, Rabbi Schneerson, right? Now, I want to tell you the history of these Messianic Jews. All right?
Okay, but we don't know how these guys are so well connected, right?
We don't know. We don't know. We can only guess. Okay, but I'm telling you what are factually correct. What information is factually correct, okay?
They have friends, they have contacts, they're just deeply connected people, but we don't know how and why.
Exactly.
And openly, people who are against them, who are sort of their enemies, and not sort of, like certain enemies, they're friends with them as well.
Yes. So my next step is I'm going to tell you the history, okay? And then can I everything together into a narrative,
okay,
that helps us explain. This narrative is my interpretation, okay, based on these facts. All right. So I want to provide some history and some background, okay? The year is 1492. 1492 is when the Jews are expelled from Spain. This is traumatic for Jews.
What got you into geopolitics and the game of prediction?
In politics was the election of Donald Trump in 2016. Because for me, that was a very traumatic event.
Why?
Well, because it didn't make any sense to me. You know, I went to Yale. I did one school. You were taught that everyone's reasonable. The world is logical. The best and the brightest reach the very top. So how could Donald Trump win? So that forced me to re-examine my worldview and reconstruct a new political understanding.
And why do you think he won?
I think he won because the elite screwed up. I think he won because the elite became incestuous. They became insular. They became arrogant. They became self-righteous. They became corrupt and incompetent. And people were sick of it. I mean, he won. I'll tell you the exactly reason why he won. Because in 2008, Obama promised hope and change.
Hmm.
And this was a time when Wall Street bankrupted the American economy, and they were blatantly corrupt. They should have all gone to jail. And Obama promised hope and change. And there was just a tremendous optimism in the air. And he won by a landslide.
Yeah.
And he comes into office and he appoints Larry Summers, Tim Geithner, these people who caused the Wall Street collapse in the first place. And they bail out their best friends, Goldman Sachs, these bankers. So these guys, these bankers on Wall Street, they bankrupted the American economy. They almost caused the global economy to collapse. And they got bailed out by the US government. And they gave themselves huge bonuses at the end of the year. And meanwhile, millions of average American homeowners lost their homes. People don't remember this. They remember Obama as the first African American president. But during his tenure, we saw the greatest destruction of wealth among African Americans. They worked decades, centuries to build up all this wealth. In a matter of years, a lot of them lost it all. And this was during the first African American president who also won a Nobel Peace Prize for being the first African American president. So there was a lot of anger. It was a sense of betrayal. In 2016, Donald Trump said that he would clean house, that he would clean a swamp, he would build a wall, and he would stop the Chinese from taking advantage of the Americans. And it was a message that resonated with a lot of people. It didn't resonate with me because I thought this guy was a clown. It probably didn't resonate with you, but it resonated with a lot of people. And I remember in 2016, I didn't pay much attention because I was told that it was mathematically impossible for Donald Trump to win. Why? Because Democrats had 3 states: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And they were pro-worker. Obama won them by landslide in 2008 and 2012. And as long as they stayed loyal to the Democrats, Trump had no chance. So I didn't pay much attention. And Trump, on election night, won all 3.
Yeah.
And no one bothered to ask them, like, why did you vote for Trump? And all that happened was the elite said, well, they voted for Trump because they were racist. And no one bothered to point out that, no. These people in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan voted for Obama twice. And then they voted for Donald Trump. Why did that happen? And it happened because the people felt betrayed by the elite. And
but don't you think then actually voting Donald Trump just is like voting another elite, because he's literally a billionaire running for the office, and a normal average middle class person hates all these elites, hate all of these people who are like crony capitalists, who are the people with big money, billionaires, because they all got saved and they got big fat bonuses, right? So that was the anger. Why would they then choose another guy who's exactly like them in a different suit?
Right. So it's interesting because we look at Donald Trump today and we think that he's just one of the elite. He's no different. And his policies are really no different from that of another Republican, right? Why did he start this war in Iran? Why is he so supportive of Israel? He seems like another elite. But in 2016, he was revolutionary because he talked not like you and me, but like the average American.
Yeah.
He used simple words to describe deep emotions that captured the imagination of the American people. In 2016, people don't remember this, but in 2016, what people would go to Trump's rallies and they felt energized. They felt a tremendous sense of hope. And they were optimistic. They would go and it was like a big pizza party. It was just a lot of fun. And Donald Trump was funny. He felt very human. He didn't speak in perfect paragraphs.
Yeah.
He didn't have a Brahmin accent like John Kerry. He felt like just the average American. And also, people don't remember, but Obama humiliated Donald Trump in, I believe it's 2011. I can't remember, but maybe 2011, there was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And Barack Obama was speaking, and he made fun of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was in the audience, and everyone was just laughing at Donald Trump. And Obama was angry at Donald Trump because Donald Trump led a campaign and accused Obama of being born in Kenya. And so therefore, he cannot qualify to be president of the United States. And obviously, if you're Obama, you're angry about this. And he took the opportunity, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, to just make fun of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump never went back to the White House Correspondents' Dinner again after that. He did go this year, but before he refused to go. And so the people can feel this animosity of the elite towards Donald Trump. Also, during the election, the entire news media was ganging up on Donald Trump. There was that Billy Bush scandal where Trump basically, in a private interview, said to Billy Bush, grab him by the pussy, right? And like before, in American politics, if you said something so crass and vulgar, you were done.
Done, yeah.
Yeah, you were forced to resign. He didn't do so. So the people saw a fighter. People saw someone like them, who talked like them, who thought like them, who felt like them. They also saw someone who was persecuted by the elite. And they saw someone who was a fighter, who would not give up. And so many have come to believe that he is the best hope for America. He's the Messiah. He's come to make America great again.
True. Do people still believe that?
Unfortunately, you have millions of people who still believe that. MAGA has become a cult. And so what's interesting is that during the presidency of Donald Trump, a new movement came into being called the QAnon movement. And we now know today, because of the Epstein Files, that was actually orchestrated by Jeffrey Epstein and Steve Bannon. Okay, but what's the essence of the QAnon conspiracy? The idea is that, first of all, Washington, D.C. is run by pedophiles. It's run by these deep state sexual degenerates. And they control the entire deep state apparatus. They also believe that Donald Trump is a chosen one, the Messiah who's going to come in and clean house and make America great again. But to do so, he has to play 5-dimensional chess. He has to pretend to work with them so that he can eventually betray them and have the second American Revolution. And that was the QAnon conspiracy. And so what that did, and what's very clever, is it makes everyone question whether or not Donald Trump is playing 5-dimensional chess, right?
Yeah.
So it's clear to most people that Donald Trump, by invading Iran, by supporting Israel, he's been co-opted by the deep state. And he is now a servant of the Zionist forces. It's pretty clear to people. But if you are deep in the QAnon conspiracy, if you're part of MAGA, in your head, you think, no, this is 5-dimensional chess. He's just fooling everyone. And at the right time, at the right moment, he will show his true colors, and we will all come together to overthrow the deep state pedophile network.
Do you believe so?
So what I do is I try to study historical patterns. And if you look at all these great individuals that have changed the course of human history, whether they're Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Napoleon, they all came into power, or they were elevated into power because of elite forces. So let's use the example of Adolf Hitler. Most people don't know this, but we have a lot of documentation that suggests that he was, at the beginning of his career, a spy for the German army, okay? The White Mark. And the White Mark embedded Adolf Hitler into a new fringe political party called the National Socialists, the Nazis. And at this time in Germany, the 1920s, there was a whole range of radical revolutionary groups that the White Mark wanted to keep an eye on, but also wanted to co-opt, because the White Mark, the German military elite, they wanted vengeance for World War I. They thought World War I was humiliating, and they wanted to change the status quo and avenge Germany's humiliation in World War I. So they were embedding all these spies into these fringe political groups in order to influence domestic politics in Germany. And Adolf Hitler was a military spy. And because he was receiving money from the military, he eventually became the leader of the Nazis, because the Nazis was just a very small French group with no real financing. And eventually, because of his personal charisma, because of his passion and belief, he started to accumulate more and more power. And there were 4 groups that supported his rise. They were the Catholic Church, the landowners, the industrialists, and the German military. And these 4 groups supported him because they were afraid of the communists. the communists were going to take over Germany
Mm-hmm.
democratically, and the right-wing elite, the oligarchs, had to provide an alternative to the communists. And these were the National Socialists, right? The communists were international socialists.
Mm-hmm.
The Nazis were national socialists. And so that's what propelled Hitler into power. Once Hitler was into power, he started to divide and conquer the elite. And the Nazi Party started to infiltrate these groups and become the government itself. And we're seeing a very similar process in America, where the elite, the Zionist elite, think that Donald Trump is a useful pawn in regime change in the Middle East, in changing the map of the Middle East to benefit America. But if you see what Donald Trump is doing domestically, Project 2025, they call it,